The conversation that you're currently having with yourself at this very moment in time, whatever that conversation may be, whether it's good, bad, ugly, indifferent, is creating your own personal reality. That means the things that you are currently witnessing within your physical reality came as a result of your internal dialogue. Now, most of us, when we think of speaking things into existence, we think of the literal words that we're saying, right? Because they're the most evident. They're the ones that we can feel, we experience in a visceral manner in most cases. But the thing that we oftentimes neglect is the inner conversation that is taking place perpetually, continuously throughout our waking and sleeping hours. We are always having a dialogue within ourselves. So when people talk about, let's say, positive affirmations, right? You think to yourself, well, positive affirmations just don't work for me. Well, the reality is we're always affirming something, whether it's positive or negative. So you're not exercising affirmations only when you're saying the thing you desire 10 times over, right? There's a conversation that's happening internally, probably 100, 1,000, tens of thousands of times, hundreds of thousands of times over. You're consistently and perpetually telling yourself things, having a back and forth conversation that is not innocent. This is not some rumination of the mind that has no purpose. Instead, this is the very creative force of our lives. And the quicker we accept that, the faster we can move into becoming conscious creators of our physical reality. So, I want to share a story with you guys, a perfect example of this, and just to show us the extent that this can really go. So I was at a coffee shop recently, and I'm sitting on my favorite little table. You know, I got my little laptop set up. I got a little stand for the laptop. Everybody loves to point the stand out for some reason. But anyway, I'm sitting there. I'm typing away at a book that I'm working on, and a lady walks in, and this lady is obviously an older woman, and she's decrepit is the only way that I could really explain it, right? She's got a real hunchback type of posture to the point where she has to like hang on to desks just to walk, or tape desks. What is this, a classroom? She has to like hang on to tables just to, skirt by. And she came and sat next to me, and the table, like literally to my left. And she sat there and, maybe said one or two comments like, oh, it was today, the 21st, or whatever it is. And then, some time went by. An old man who was sitting there as well, who she did not know, ended up buying her food, etc. I was assuming that maybe she, was without a home or something like that, right? And in my small town, people are real cordial. It's a real small town vibe. So they'll talk to you, they'll show you love, whatever, whoever you are, whatever your circumstances are. They're not just going to ignore you or just throw you some money just so they can avoid you, type of thing. So she's sitting there, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I start hearing her like murmuring and speaking to herself, and she's uttering, cuss words or whatever it is. I ain't no prude and nothing like that in that way. I get down. I can dabble in some, but she really started getting intense with it, and she started then yelling. But she wasn't saying it to me; she was saying it to herself. And when I really started listening to her, I realized that she was saying something that was actually is a storyline. So she was having a conversation with people that obviously weren't there in the physical, but were very real in her mental, right? And she was having this conversation, and it seemed like a situation or scenario that got her in the streets in the first place, how she ended up in the streets. And she not only had this conversation one time with herself, she had it a multitude of times over and over. Like she would say it and then she would start again. She would say it and then she would start again. Say the entire thing, then she would start again. And I started realizing in that moment, like, wow, there's a tape recorder playing in her head of this situation and the scenario, that is literally in limbo. It's a loop that is playing. And immediately I started thinking that this woman is no different than any of us sitting in the rest of this coffee shop, right? Including myself. We all have messages that are ruminating within our psyche. We all have messages that are consistently playing that most of us are unconscious of. Yet those very same messages that we're repeating to ourselves, those very same stories that we're telling ourselves, are creating our physical reality. So you may be telling yourself a certain story about your relationship dynamic, right? Relationships never work out. If I wish I could get myself into a good relationship, but no good people are out there. You're telling yourself these things over and over again, and it's showing up as your physical experience. And it has no choice but to. The thing that we ruminate and focus upon has to become our physical reality. This is universal law. It is principle. It is going nowhere. Same yesterday, today, and forevermore. And so the first thing I really thought also with this woman, well, secondary thought I had with this woman sitting next to me was the reason why she may seem like she is quote unquote crazy for bursting out with what she's saying is because, again, she's saying it out loud. If most of us were to say out loud the things that we're ruminating in our heads, we would look just like this woman who was next to me. Most of us. Because most people's internal dialogue is so deeply negative, it's so deeply destructive, and most of it is unconscious. It doesn't mean that we're not aware of it completely, right? Because I believe the subconscious is all shown within our physical reality. If you want to know what you believe or what your belief systems are in any area of your life, just look at that area of your life and it will be evident. So if you want to know what you believe about relationships, look at the pattern within your relationships. If you want to know what you believe about money, look at your bank account, look at your wallet, look at your financial statements. If you want to know your belief system about career, look at how your careers have played out. Look at the patterns within there. We're always going to know our subconscious or unconscious beliefs in our physical reality. But the reason why it seems as if these stories are unconscious is because they're an autopilot. So we continuously and persistently regurgitate these stories without ever checking them. And that is where the problem lays. When we are unaware or when we do not put consciousness towards the autopilot, automated stories that we've probably carried since infancy or adolescence at the very most, when we don't check those, we carry those beliefs into adulthood. So you may have a belief about marriage that started when you were an infant. You were seeing your environment, you were recognizing and noticing your parental figures or whoever it is that may have raised you, and you're thinking to yourself unconsciously that this is what a relationship looks like, this is what a marriage looks like. And so you start to indoctrinate yourself, internalize those messages, pick up whatever it is that you're seeing. How does somebody get treated in a relationship? This is what a marriage looks like. This is how marriage plays out from whatever role it may be, right? Husband or wife position. And you start to internalize that to a point where it becomes your story, your narrative, and that becomes your belief system. And it starts to manifest as your physical experience as early as the very first relationships you have. So you find yourself in your, with your childhood crush or whatever, and you think to yourself, why did this end up so messy and so destructive? You already had a belief about relationships before you got in that relationship. I know we like to blame the ex as a place where everything started, like your ex was where the trauma started, but in truth, it started in our earliest stages. We just happen to carry those belief systems into the very first relationship dynamics that we then, engaged in. And something that my girl continuously brings to my awareness is that, our relationship dynamics are always a representation, or our romantic relationships are always a representation of our parental relationships. They're the closest representation of it because we're so close. We're oftentimes in the closest proximity. It's where you are the most vulnerable. So you're showing the most aspects of yourself or the lack thereof. And so we really have to get to a place where we start to check that internal dialogue. We have to become conscious of our unconscious behaviors. We have to start to observe ourselves. And we can only do so when we stop stimulating ourselves all day, when we stop distracting ourselves, we stop numbing ourselves, we stop coping for one coping mechanism after another. Giving up the incessant compulsiveness of scrolling through your phone, having to find something that will numb that feeling of anxiety. We have to sit with our feelings. We have to sit with the emotion. We got to sit in the space of meditation, of journaling, whether it's walking or just being in the moment, whatever that looks like for you. But we have to get into a space where we prioritize mindfulness. There's no other way to do it. Trust me. You can't live an unconscious, unintentional life and expect to have the results that you desire out of life. You're always going to get the results of whatever is planted into your consciousness. Like I'm in the coffee shop today. Yes, I'm always in a coffee shop somewhere, right? That's my vibe. So I'm in the coffee shop and there's a song playing in the background and it's literally repeating like, good things never last, good things never last. And I literally had to send that message to my girl to be like, wow, this is wild. Because we were just talking about this today. Like I was saying how we are conditioned to have this belief that good things aren't supposed to last. And here I am listening to the song and it's repeating that over and over. Now, just imagine if somebody loves that song, they listen to that song over and over and over again. Now they have that hardwiring or that software, at least, that says, good things never last. And they don't even know where they got belief from. They don't even remember how that belief formed in their childhood. Maybe their mama used to listen to the damn song, Good Things Never Last, I don't know. I didn't look it up. I could care less what that song was. But I know that such messaging is destructive. I know that such messaging will create a perception that will then lead to external results that we do not desire. And so we will suffer as a result of our belief system when we continue to let them go unchecked. We have to continuously, perpetually look within and see what we're believing in order to start to change our belief systems. And this won't, it's like if you've had a belief for 50 years, it doesn't take another 50 years to create a new belief system. It really doesn't. It just takes an intentionality to be aware of what is, shine light on what is, and then to start to replace it with something entirely different and use as much evidence. It's different for everybody. Some are tactile, some people are, visual, some people are auditory. And so whatever it is that is most powerful for you to build a new belief and to start to indoctrinate yourself into that new empowering belief, you must do that. But until you start to become aware of what your internal dialogue is and to become honest about your internal dialogue, you will stay the exact same. You'll continue to have the very same perpetuating life experiences. And this isn't just me talking to you. This is me talking to myself. I have to constantly remind myself to check myself before I riggedy wreck myself. That being said, quick plug on my first published book, Doing Me Guilt-Free, Breaking Free from People Pleasing and Unleashing Your True Personal Power. Make sure to get yourself a copy of one of these. It will be a lifetime investment for whoever it is that finds this calling to them at this very moment in time. So get yourself a copy by clicking the link in the description below. Until the next time, namaste, namasko.